What's up? Welcome. I am so glad you are here listening and spending time with me today. Release Your Inner Power talks about life, the trenches, the decisions, and the wins that we have now, today, and that have experienced in our past. There are stories, encouragement, tools, and tips to take those next steps to release that inner power and connect with something that is said or someone, a special guest maybe, that will boost your week. I am your host, Shauna B. Here we go. Welcome back to Release Your Inner Power podcast. I'm so excited to share this guest with you today. She is one of my pod sisters. Her name is Marybeth. Welcome, Marybeth, to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Shauna. I'm so stoked to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, yes, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to share you with everybody. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me who Marybeth is.
Well, I'm always so worried about answering this question because I feel like everybody else does such a great job. You know, you hear on podcasts and stuff, they have their little like spiel, and I just feel like I never know where to start. So I'm just gonna ADHD it and we'll ramble and we'll just go from there. So
Okay.
My name is Marybeth. I am currently working in corporate and I have a side gig, which is my coaching business. And I also have a podcast, which is how I met you, which we love. Um, a little bit about my backstory. I felt like I just never kind of fit in when I was a kid, just starting out. Like I always struggled. And I've noticed like how that stuck with me. And I joke about like how I'm bad at life and how it's just life is rough. And not like in a negative or downer way, but just kind of factual. Like I feel like I've just always struggled and never really fit in. And throughout like my teenage and 20s, I started to realize like normal isn't going to work for me. You know, I was striving a lot to like be normal and figure out how to fit into like a round hole being a square peg, right? And I would go back and forth between feeling like I just need to try harder or I need to shrink myself or maybe I just need to not draw attention to the fact that like I'm not good at this. It's not working. It being like surviving life. And then I would switch to the other side and I'd be like, screw this, man. Like, this is never gonna work for me. None of this fits and forget about it. Right. So I finally got to the point where I was like, you're never gonna be normal. And then the cool part was when I realized like I don't want to be normal. Like I don't want 2.5 kids with a picket fence with like a golden retriever. Like that's not my lifestyle at all. And so I had to take a step back and be like, there's not a roadmap, right? And at that time, like I thought everybody else had a roadmap that like, you know, you go to school, you go into corporate, you get married, you have kids. Like, no, no, no. I realize now that there's not really a roadmap for anybody. But at that point, I was like, dang, this is gonna be hard, dude, because like I have to figure out everything for myself. And I feel like that's when I kind of started like branching out on my own and just like little things, right? Like I'm not super extreme or like really out there, but I would do things like take a road trip by myself or like go on a cruise by myself or like just wear things I liked as a plus size person. And I kept hearing like the women around me be like, "Oh my gosh, like that's so brave." Or "Wow, you're so confident." And I thought it was like so weird because I didn't feel confident and I still don't. Like as you get to know me, like I'm pretty good at like putting out a persona and like accomplishing the message I want to send or like articulating it, like if I know what I'm trying to accomplish. But in general, like I feel like I'm just kind of the driver of the struggle bus. I feel like my life is a dumpster fire most of the time. And so like I know I come across as really confident, and then as people get to know me better, they're like, dude, you're always just like talking about how much of a shit show and stuff you are. And I'm like, yeah, but those things aren't mutually exclusive. So like it's okay. Um, but point being, like I felt like I kind of had to find my own way. And so I've just like been doing that. Like I'm 35, I still don't really know like what I want to do. But I finally gotten to the point where like that's okay. And I've given myself permission to like do the things that I'm interested in right now. And so like that's where the podcast and the coaching program has come from. Like that's where I'm at right now. Um, and a lot of it just stemmed from like getting those comments of people like telling me I was confident and then me being like, I don't feel confident at all. Like, what are you talking about? And then it finally clicked of like, I didn't do these things like shave my head or like go on a trip by myself because I felt confident. I'm gaining confidence because I've done these things. And like that's when I started getting pissed because I was like, oh, people keep thinking like it's something I'm born with and they're like I'm special or whatever and they're like I can pull something off that you can't pull off. And I think that is so much bullshit. So, I feel like that was a weird way to answer your question, but but
It was
here we are.
great. I think it was
That's
great.
how that
And
rolls.
I have some things. So, of course, I I want to back up a little bit because I want you to tell me more about stuff. But first of all, I want to say like when you said that normal doesn't work for me, I freaking love that. I love it so much because we, by and large with society, we are raised to be this quote unquote, this normal thing of, like you
Yeah.
said, 2.5 kids and the picket fence and the la ti da. And it's kind of like there's so much pressure to be a certain way that I like commend you because you're like, listen, this is not working for me. And I like because you tried and it was miserable. And you're like, this isn't happening for me. So I want to go over here and do my own thing. And that's awesome because some people will get stuck in the loop of the expectation of what you were supposed to do and
Yeah.
they don't branch out. And when you branch out and you do what's best for you, that's when all the I call it magic happens, right? Like that's when you like you said, like when people were coming up to you and they're like, they're so confident. When you were talking about that, I know exactly what they're saying. Like, I know exactly what they're saying. You have a personality and like a space about you of when you are talking through things, you are very real. Like, you are very real in explaining stuff. And even if it's like embarrassing or something that you may not be a little like you might not feel confident in, but you express that and you're like flexing. Like you are literally flexing without realizing it because you're like, look at what I'm doing. Like, look how I am working through this situation. Look at how this scenario happened to me. And this is how like I perceived it, how they perceived any of that stuff. And you are just okay with being you because you know that this whole quote unquote normal isn't your jam.
Yeah.
And there's something about the way you present things that's just it's magnetic. I don't know how to explain it. Like I want to see more things. Like I want to see more of your TikToks. I want to see, I want to hear your podcasts. I want to hear more things just like how you explain everything. Just I think because you're like you are real and true to yourself. But you're also doing it like you might be like a little scared, right? You might be like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for this, but then you're like, here we go. I'm gonna do it. And you're gaining, like you said, you're gaining all of this confidence and you are making it a thing because you are flexing on it. Like you are doing the thing. And so when somebody's like, oh my gosh, you're so confident about it. And like to you, you're like, I'm just doing the thing,
Never.
like it's not,
Not panic.
yeah. But it's
Yeah.
like, but you're doing it and showing that you can do it, even if you don't feel like you have all this like confidence that's like behind you and like building this thing up. You're still
Yes.
doing it and flexing to show that you can to get it. Like you don't have to do it to start. You get it through the process.
And that's
You're
like,
good at
yes,
that.
so that's the thing, right? Like that's what hypes me up because I'm like, I can do, and I don't know, I feel like my mind goes blank. It's not like I've done a ton of like cool shit, but little things like I was freaking out about getting on this podcast, but it's like you do it anyway. And like I love what you said because like that's the whole thing. Like you just explained like my entire how my brain works because it's like I don't have to feel good about it to still do it. I don't have to think that it's the best TikTok in the world to put the TikTok out there. And what I started to realize about myself, and a lot of it helps because I have four little sisters, and I'm like, I don't want them to go through the bullshit and the self-doubt and thinking they're not good enough that I did because like they're amazing. And then like they're growing up, and you see them like have those moments and it pisses me off. And so part of my thing is like, I'm like, you know, I talk about how I don't have my shit together all the time, just like struggling through life. And my kind of shtick is like, if I can do it, bro, you can definitely do it. And the more I learn about myself, I'm like, I'm ADHD, I'm super sensitive, like I am probably autistic, like that would explain a lot. And so then it's like I joke about how I'm here to like make other people feel better about themselves. And it's not like it's a down on me. Like I really don't hate myself. But for real, like if I can just let myself do it messy and just show up, and then like I love that you call it a flex because it doesn't feel like a flex at all. It just feels like showing you the mess that is like me attempting to do something. And I'll be like, look, bro, if I can fall on my face and get back up, then you definitely can. So like that's like my whole message.
It's just so real though. I have a question. Are you the oldest of these sisters?
I'm the oldest sister. Yeah, I have two older brothers, but I'm the oldest girl.
Oh, look, I just learned something new.
Look at you go.
Um, okay, so you're the oldest sister. That's interesting too, because like when you said, you see some of these things, you don't want them to go through what you went through, but then you see some of it happening. But at the same time, they still will have to experience these things to a point, right? In order to like learn to flex on their own. But like with you, I feel like you being so real and you doing like what you do and how you do it probably helps like curve like guide them in a way, right? Like so maybe they might not do certain things because
Yeah,
they're like, oh, big sis already did this and what have you, but then they have like their own journey of something that maybe you didn't experience that they have to go through, but it's lessened because you're guiding them.
that's what I hope. Yeah,
I bet
that's
you are.
the
I
goal.
bet you are. You don't
I
even
hope
realize it.
so.
But I love how you're like, oh, I love that you call it a flex, but it doesn't feel like that. I think that a lot of times we because I went through this too, like I wanted this like big feeling of like, if
Yeah,
you like have this thing that you overcome, you want like this
yeah,
big feeling, or you get, your hair stands up all over, you get tinglies or something. There's supposed to be some like big magical moment that's supposed to happen to be like, you have done the thing, like it's supposed to
right.
be this thing, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's so quiet,
Yeah.
but then when you keep doing it and you keep doing it and you get feedback, just saying, when you get feedback, like people are like, oh my gosh, you seem so confident on that. It's because you have flexed 5 times before doing this thing, right? And then you're like, oh, maybe I am, because it's like new level, new devil is what I say, right? Like maybe you've leveled
Yeah,
yourself
it's
up.
good.
So you're still like, you're still feeling like the fears and you're still feeling the things and you're doing it messy and you're like, whatever, this is happening because I gotta, like you're trying to get to level 5 or
Yeah,
whatever, because you just leveled up. So it's like it always feels like there's something there, but it's just different. It's a
totally.
different way of seeing it. So I love that. I love that. And
Well,
seeing some of your TikToks too, like some of the things that you presented, because like I totally went down the rabbit hole of your TikToks. It was hilarious. I was like, I started watching them and I'm like, I want more and more and more. And there was some of them on there that were so, I mean, I think your TikTok is amazing, but there were some of them on there that were like that totally like I even commented on your stuff to be like this right here. And the one, I can't remember the
I
one that you said
appreciate
just do it, like how you were talking about doing it messy. There was a voiceover and you were copying what the person was saying. And it was basically like saying, like, if you're doing it scared, just do it. Just do it because like amazing things will happen. Was
Yeah.
my favorite. That was my favorite. And you're like, this gets overlooked. And I'm like, I don't know why, because it's amazing. And I loved it. I loved it about you. So I love that you have these things that you're fun about. You lighten it up, and you're always like smiley and happy when you're explaining things. Even if it's something that was hard for you to do, you still present it in like such a way of like, yeah, this happened. Whatever. Let's keep going. What I
Well,
learned, and let's go on from there, which I love about you.
I am a nervous laugher, so that definitely helps. The more uncomfortable I am, the more I'm gonna laugh. I also use humor to deal with my trauma. So yeah, I'm just either laughing or cracking jokes, like pretty much all the time.
I
So
love that.
I love what you said about new level, new devil, because I think that is so like that's basically like it's just how shit works, right? Like a lot of the time I think we have it in our head that we're gonna like arrive somewhere and that we're gonna feel a certain way and we're gonna like check the box and be like, all right, I can like breathe a sigh of relief and I can like rest on my laurels and like everything's gonna be I can coast from here. Like everything's gonna be good once I hit this certain thing. And I think that realizing that that never happens unless you're basically like giving up and you really are coasting through the rest of your life. But like the faster we can embrace the process itself, which I hate saying that. I hate people who trust the process. But but it's like realizing that this is how shit works. It's not about feeling confident or feeling good about it. It's about doing it anyway and then looking back and seeing all the shit you did. It's about the fact that nobody nobody watched my TikToks for the first like whatever, you know? And now I have people like you who are going back and watching old TikToks that I thought had flopped, right? And so I think that mentality is so important that we're never really, as long as we're growing, which I think we should always be growing and learning, as long as we're growing and progressing, there's always gonna be that stuff that we don't want to deal with. It's gonna look different, it's gonna be at a different level, it's gonna come from a different direction. But like, and I don't want to say like get comfortable being uncomfortable, but that's what I'm saying, right? Like when I've started embracing the fact that like it's not gonna be easy and I'm not going to, especially with me and my anxiety, like I'm probably never gonna not like have a little panic before I jump in front of a camera, right? But the fact that I don't let it hold me back anymore, like to me, that's the win. It's not about the feeling, and I might never get like super comfortable, but it's the fact that I can get myself to do it anyway. And then that translates to every other thing, right? Whether you do want to do a blog or you want to launch a business or you want to like go talk to a stranger at a bar, like the whole thing is like you are getting there because you're doing the thing, regardless of how good you feel about it, regardless of how pretty it might look. Like you're doing the thing, and that's the whole shit. Like that's the
Yeah.
whole fucking point.
Yes. Yes. I love that you said that because like you said, I hate saying I trust the process because I also am one of those people, right? Like
Yeah.
in the whole get comfortable feeling uncomfortable. I feel like anyway, we go through life and life is hard. There's stuff thrown at you literally. Pick a
Yeah.
day. Something will happen, right? It's not all rainbows and sunshine and glitter
No.
everywhere. Like that's not realistic. And so
Especially
things
when you're
happen.
sensitive and everything bothers you. Like
Yes, it's like you go through one day and see like what all you're triggered here, there, everywhere, and you're like, why is this bothering me? And then there's more, right? But it's like what you said, it's how you choose to move through this. Like, so if you're
yeah,
growing, if you're not growing, what are you doing? You're stuck and you're dying. I mean, let's be legit,
for
right?
real, for
So
real, for real. Yeah.
you if you want to move up and you want new things, new opportunities, new places, new stuff to happen, you got to
Yes.
step into it. Even if it's just a toe in, you can't just be like, oh, I'm done. No, you can
Yeah.
take breaks. You can step back, like you said, and turn around and see how far you've come. That's going to give you the motivation to keep going, like you said. Like I'm
Absolutely.
still doing the thing. I'm doing it messy. I'm scared. I like freak out before I hit, record, whatever. But then you still do it. But like you said, then you look back and you're like, I'm so glad that I did that. And
Yeah.
look at how far I've come from, like that particular video to now, and
Yeah.
like what you talk about, what you've learned about yourself, what you know,
Yeah.
how you're flexing without realizing you're doing it, because in that level it might have been really hard, but in this level it's easier.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're still flexing, but it's not like, oh my God, I got to do this. Maybe like, okay, okay, I'm ready, instead of it being like
Yeah.
worse, it's easier, and it keeps getting easier. But like you said, it'll change throughout the path, and it might be something different, but that doesn't mean you can't, because you already did all of this before, because you're
Exactly.
doing the thing, because you keep
Exactly.
doing the thing.
And that's what confidence is
Yeah.
exactly what you said of like you can and you can because of what you've already done. Like
Mhm.
you have that proof that you can do it anyway. And so it's not like it's not a feeling, first of all, but then it's also not like it doesn't come before you do the thing. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that people have. Like, and I realize I think that's why it rubs me wrong when people say, like, oh, you're so confident. And then they act like that's the reason, like, it must be easy for me because XYZ. And you're like, no, bro, like, I've done this a million times. And that's why you're calling me confident. So it's not that I'm confident and therefore I can do it and you can't.
Right.
You absolutely can.
Right. Right. And to get that but it also goes back with like there's like a little added part, right? There's like this I call it my brain dragon because I separate it, but it's like the voice that swoops in and is like, "Oh, you can't do the thing and
Yeah.
it can't be messy," and it,
Yeah.
like tries to keep you stuck and talk you out of things because it doesn't want new shit to happen. It wants you to stay right here where it knows like, "Oh, I know what's going to happen," because if you like open the door to who knows what, it like freaks out.
Yeah.
So I have to like tame that as well as, taking the step
Yes.
and like swat that out of here. And it's like that's like a whole thing. So like you can, but then you have to like be nice to yourself and like cheer yourself on to do it. Like,
Yes.
okay, I'm gonna do this. And it might
Yes.
look like a disaster. But I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. Let's disaster it up. And then you do it.
Yeah.
And then you figure out like, how do I want this to, maybe you want it to sound better, or maybe you want to, say it a different way, or I'm going to take this off and try this. That's when you can tweak it and make it better by swatting this brain dragon away, first of all, taking the step and then tweaking it as you go because you already did, like, plugged your nose, jumped right in. We're just going to do it. Do the
And
thing.
I think that's what people miss so often is like it's so hard to work up the courage to do the thing. And we do it and we expect fireworks or something. Like if I'm gonna put myself out there and like post a podcast, bro, I better have a million followers or else what is the reason? Like what am I doing it for? And it's like, no. Like,
Right.
yes, you did it, and that's a huge fucking deal. And pat yourself on the back and be nice to yourself and give yourself credit and celebrate every tiny little step. And know that that was the first step, and you're gonna have to tweak it and you're gonna have to refine it. And like, you do it messy, but you don't leave it messy. And I think that's a lot of like, I think we miss a lot of that because it's so hard to do the thing, especially at the beginning, And one of my things is like, do baby steps, right? Like, break it down into the smallest thing you can so that you can overcome the hump and do it. But then it's like a double-edged sword because the smaller the thing is, the less likely you are to have like crazy results. So it's like you have to figure out a way to keep yourself motivated to keep going because the first step is the most important, but you're not gonna get anywhere if you don't keep taking the next step and the next step and the next step.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's the
It's rough. It's
that's
rough.
the thing, right? That's why I mean, because I want to dive into your coaching program. That's one of the reasons why like I started coaching is like taking the first step is like the whole thing, but like coaching in itself is like locking arms with somebody and being like, come on, man, let's do this. Like you can do it, but you're
Yeah.
not doing it alone either, right? And for
Yeah.
me, mine is like getting rid of this brain dragon that's trying to keep you stuck and teaching you and reframing you how to be your biggest cheerleader so you can do this shit messy and you can do it, scared and all of the things because
Yeah.
that's how you feel different. Like when you do all this stuff and you go through all this, you feel different. Like
Yeah.
you have more opportunity, more excitement. You meet freaking amazing people that
Yeah.
like our whole pod of all of our girls, we would have never met each other and how much we help each other by creating this community and such. So it's like there's so much opportunity out there that people are refraining or keeping from themselves by not just sticking a toe in.
And like that's how you get better. Also, like for the longest time, I consider myself a recovering perfectionist. And especially like with anxiety or like, a lot of the stuff we struggle with, it's so tempting to want to figure everything out before you start. And it's kind of our society is kind of built that way too. Like you go through school and then you get the job and then you have training for the job and then you start doing the job, right? So I feel like we approach things expecting to have like everything figured out before we're ready to start. And like that's the logical pattern. But that's not, in my experience, how things work at all. It's like you have to do the thing. There have been podcast episodes that I didn't even edit because I was like, if I go through this and listen to this, I know I'm gonna not have the guts to post it. So I'm just gonna like close my eyes and like hit publish and just see what happens. And and I think sometimes you have those moments, and then I think sometimes like you were saying, if you can get the brain dragon under control, then you have more capacity to take a step back and go, okay, it's the podcast is already out there. What's done is done, right? So now my next episode, I can implement some feedback and I can make things a little bit better and I can, invest in XYZ because now I actually have a podcast instead of just an idea. And it really like every step sets you up for the next step.
Mhm. When did you, so when you were going through everything and practicing all of these tools that we're actually talking about, like when did you like realize like when you would do the thing hard, like that was hard or messy or, scared, like all of that. Like when you said, normal doesn't work for me, that's not who I am. And you trying to figure out, like you said, oh, I have to do this all on my own because of what we just talked about. Society has this path where you can see where it keeps us comfortable because we know where the end result is. But when you actually do what is true to you, you can't see what the end result is. You can see what you want, but you don't know how you're going to get there. The path isn't there. So how did you trust yourself to take like the next step to actually do that, to actually like stick a toe in and like do all of that? Like when did you start to do that? Was it in your 20s, like you're like after high school or after school, or was it in the like when did you know, like, oh, this isn't working for me, but this is, and I'm still figuring it out and I'm okay with that?
Love that question. Um, I think it's real cute how you assume that like I've gotten to a place where I feel like I'm good, like I know where I'm going, or uh, yeah, I don't know. So I'm just gonna answer this in a ramble, and we'll see what happens. It was from the beginning, bro. Like it wasn't working out well for me. Like we will just say that. Like I'm the oldest girl, right? So I had two older brothers. So from the jump, I didn't fit in because I'm the girl, right? And like nobody knew what to do with me. And then once I had younger siblings, we were like very conservative and homeschooled. And so it was like Little House on the Prairie, bro. Like the oldest girl is supposed to be like the second mom, right? And for some reason, like I was terrible at that as well, which is crazy because I used to want to have kids. And so like normal didn't work for me like for forever. And then in high school, like I was always big, so I would never fit in with the girls. I was never cute, and I just kind of like gave up and started wearing like dressing like a boy and hanging out with the skaters, And then I didn't fit in there either because I wasn't athletic and I wasn't a boy, right? And so I think part of what made it easy to start kind of doing my own thing is that I didn't really have the option to do the normal thing. Because like even if I did the right things, like I still didn't fit in. Like go to I could go to like the church events, right? But none of the church boys were gonna like me because I didn't fit the little standard, right? Or like I could go to the school things, but it's like I never really fit in because I was homeschooled or like I try to get involved in sports and it's like that's cool. Like I was okay at swimming, but I wasn't super athletic. And then again, like I didn't actually go to the school. So anyway, it was like you get enough messaging that like nothing you're doing is working, that you just start to realize like, okay, I felt like a black sheep like pretty much my whole life. So in a sense, I feel like it made it easier to kind of branch off and do my own thing because it was never going to work for me to fit in or to like go the normal route or try to blend in with the crowd. Like it was pretty easy to see that. And so for a long time, I was just kind of like a loner. And because I was able to see that so early on, I think it was kind of easier for me to just experiment with like little things. I was a loner like from a young age, which was, I don't know, it's kind of weird, right? Like you read books and movies, like everything around you is telling you you're supposed to be like buddied up with friends or whatever, and like that never really clicked with me. I I don't know. Sorry, I'm kind of losing my train of thought. We're getting deep into the rabbit hole
Oh,
here.
well, okay. So with what you just told me, it sounds like that when like you got enough messages to be like, this is not your path. Like this is not the journey that you're
Right.
supposed to be. This is not what you are. And it's almost like you kind of like at one point you stopped and you're like, okay, I'm hearing all of this loud and clear. And it's almost like you gave yourself permission to like do your own thing in your own way.
Yeah.
Like
You're supposed.
that's what I call releasing your inner power.
Okay. I,
Because
I,
now you're like accepting that this is going to be what it is and I don't have to see what it's like you said like I don't even know
yeah.
I love how you said oh you assume like I'm here where like I've arrived but I feel like if we do that though if we say like I have arrived like we're still not growing because there's so many things that we could be doing or
Yeah.
figuring it out. I feel like we spend our whole lives trying to figure out what is best for us and what works for us and what doesn't. And things change
Literally.
around us, right? Everything changes around us and we take what's for us or leave what's not. And I feel like when you did that, that's when you started seeing different things and going a different way.
Yeah. That's good.
But then being okay with it. Because you're like,
Well,
no, this is it. This is my thing. I'm okay going rogue and going over here. Right?
there's no guarantee that it's gonna work out, right? And that's the thing. That's the thing that like always got me hung up is because I knew I was smart for some reason. Like maybe I was arrogant, but like I always knew I was smart. And there was this pressure to make the right decision all the time to the point where I was like, I was talking about being a loner. I didn't even want friends for a long time because I was like, they're just gonna drag me down. Like teenagers make bad decisions, like this, that, and the like I was so like weirdly aware at 12 that I was like too good for anyone because they were gonna like pull me away from my goals. I don't know what the fuck goals I had at like 12 years old, but I specifically remember like being in my little journal and being like, people are a burden. Like they're always gonna want something from you and then they're gonna influence you and like this, that, and the other. And I like had it in my head that I had to make the right decisions. And that's what got me hung up for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I spent like a million years at a community college getting two associate's degrees and no bachelor's because I kept waiting to figure out what the right thing was. And then I was finally like, there's not, there, you can't keep waiting because you're not getting anywhere. Like I kept thinking like a light bulb would go off at 18 and I would figure out what I wanted to do. And then I was like, all right, maybe at like 21 or whatever the little road marks were. And then I was like, I'm not starting yet. Like I'm not like starting my life. And I think a lot of that was when I was like, there's no guarantee that the correct way and like following society and like following the pressure and doing what I'm supposed to do is going to get me where I want to be anyway. And actually, there's a pretty good chance I don't want to be there
Mm-hmm.
because I see what those people are doing and it doesn't look fun and it's not me. And so there's no guarantee that me doing my own thing is going to get me anywhere good either. But what's the loss? Because it's the same situation, but at least I can have more fun and feel more true to myself, like doing my own thing over here. And I feel like it's kind of sad, like how new to this journey I am. But it's crazy how you see, like, you crack your shell just a little bit and you start. Actually, I think there's a TikTok of my drafts right now that's like, the weirder I let myself be, the cooler the people are that I attract.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like even little things where you crack your shell just a little bit and you let your weirdness or your authenticity or whatever shine through. And then you notice the connections are much realer. The people are way cooler. The feeling that you have when you're around those people and when you're doing the things you want to do is totally different. And it's like I realized that I was performing for the vast majority of my life. And so, which part of it was like masking because ADHD, but it's like not only can you have a better time and like be yourself, but you can actually find people who appreciate you for who you are, despite the fact that you've been told your whole life that you have to fit into this box if anybody's going to like you. That's so bullshit.
Mhm.
Like, it's the most bullshit. And I think we get hung up on that so much, and we think that we have to be a certain way or a certain kind of person or certain this, that, and the other in order for people to like us. And then you realize even if people do like you when you're doing that, they still don't like you
Mhm.
because that's not you. They may like your performance, they might enjoy the little mask that you're putting on, but all your effort in denying being yourself and like all the hoops you're jumping through, you're still not getting the result you wanted. People still don't like you because they don't even know who the fuck you are. So when you put yourself out there and you start being like, okay, like me right now, I don't know why I'm yelling at you. And you
You're
like get
not.
in your
You're
zone,
being expressive, girl. It's fine.
you like get in your zone, right? Then it's like, yeah, people also aren't gonna like you. But people didn't like you before. Like we always focus on the negative, like, oh, people aren't gonna like what I have to say, or oh, if I'm too real, people aren't gonna like it. People didn't like you before because they didn't know who you were because you weren't even being you. But at least this way you have a chance to find people that you actually do connect with on a real level. And I feel like I'm like just scratching the surface on like just heading down that path, but it's already night and day difference.
Hmm. I mean, that's so real with what you said because when you said just starting down the path, yeah, because you open the door, right? You
Yes.
open the door and you're willing to step
First
through it,
step.
and then all of this happens, right? You may not know
Yeah.
exactly what, but like you said, being true to yourself and being who you are and showing up who you are, cutting out all the bullshit of like people and their freaking opinion or their whatever they think of you is irrelevant because
Totally.
you living true to you is freeing and allowing you to open the doors to actually go through, which, like you said, is like a night and day difference. But until they do that, until you do that, you don't know what that feels like until you do it.
Yeah.
When you
You don't
do
know
it,
what
you're
to open
like,
the door when it's shut.
yeah, you're like, why the hell did I not do this before? But you didn't,
So real. Real, real. Yeah.
but you're doing it now. You're doing it now. You're taking the
Better
steps,
late than never. That's one of my mottos.
right? Yeah. Tell me more about, I want to know, I know, let me rephrase this. I know about your podcast and I know about your coaching business, but I would like you to share with the listeners more of, what Fierce Framework is and your podcast.
Thanks for making it so big, Shauna. Uh, you would think having a podcast, you'd be good at talking about it. So the whole premise of the podcast is like, again, once I realized that, okay, so there's two things. Once I realized that it wasn't like something special about me that like allowed me to, and it's not that I don't care what other people think, like I'm very concerned about what other people think, but I am oftentimes allow myself to be more worried about what I think. And so that's what kind of allows me to like do shit I want to do, regardless of if it fits into societal norms or not. And okay, sorry. So that's like point one, right? And once I realized that it wasn't like something innate or special about me, and I was like, anybody who can do that, like anybody can do this, but we're not, especially as women. And so I tend to like aim my conversation towards women because I feel like we're the ones who are under like attack by society, that like there's always something that we're supposed to be doing, or like there's always some new way of how we're supposed to be shrinking and like not speaking up for ourselves, and like there's a new box that we're supposed to try to fit, it's like we're specifically targeted, right? And then like we're smart, right? So then we pass this on to our daughters so that they can excel, and it's like, so there's this whole culture of being a woman that is like means the same thing as like self-sacrifice and people pleasing. And like I love that Kathy Heller says like we are socialized to be codependent.
Mhm.
Like that's how we're supposed to be. Like the correct way to be a woman is to not want things and to not do the things that you want to do. Like the correct way is to like be there to serve other people, period. And that is insane to me. And
Mhm.
it's like everything is like I sound like such a conspiracy theorist, but it's like everything like comes together like for that goal. And that really pisses me off. And I think that we have way more to offer. And I love that you talk about like stepping into your power because women are so powerful. If we weren't, there wouldn't be so much effort put into keeping us down. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like that's the reason we're targeted. Because women have so much power and we have so much to offer and we can change the world and we're doing it every day anyway. We just don't get credit for it, right? And knowing that anybody can do the little shit that I do and feel better about their life and live a life that lights them up and that is headed in a direction that they want to go and not just a path that society set them on, like if there's anything that I can say that helps someone else realize that, like that's so heavy on my heart. Like that's so important to me. And then the second piece is like I'm I'm not normal, but like my life is normal, right? I'm not like a billionaire who like landed a husband with an eight pack and like I live on a beach and work 1 hour a week and now I'm teaching you how to be like me. Like my life is very attainable. My life isn't even like what's the word? People wouldn't even want my life necessarily, right? Like, I just live in my house. I hardly ever leave my house. Like I love living in my basement, but it's the fact that like it's you could very easily do the things I do. Like it's very sorry, I feel like I'm super struggling. But it's like I feel like I'm in a cool position to where the things I'm saying, like I'm at the beginning with you. Like the people I'm talking to are kind of stuck in their current life, right? And they don't really know how to get out. And so I'm in a position where I'm not a million miles down the road and I forgot what it's like to be where you're at. I'm just a couple steps. I've opened the door and so I can see what's behind the door. And so now I'm turning around and I want to help you open the door, right? I'm not all the way down the path where I can't see the door anymore.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what I'm trying to say is I feel like anybody can do it. And so if there's anything I have to offer, like it's my pleasure as my obligation, right? And then I also feel like I'm in a place where it's relatable and my life is relatable enough to where people can look at me and say, if she can do it, I can definitely do it.
Mhm. Yeah, I love all of that. And I think that's super important too, like you said, because sometimes when, you are learning from some people that are like, way ahead of you, it feels
Yeah,
like it's out of reach.
totally.
Right. But then when you're like, you're still moving on your path, but you, like you said, you can turn around and be like, come on, let's go. I'm right here. You just got to come with
Yeah.
me. I think that's so powerful because I think that sometimes people can get caught up in the how far somebody has come type situation, but realizing that, and then what you have to say, how what you have to say in helping somebody believe in themselves to like speak up, to have a voice, to it's okay to not fit in the box. All of
Yeah.
I think is a very powerful thing. And that's why I love your TikToks and I love your podcast because I feel like that you do that. You do that. And you take, sometimes you take very real situations and you like, and you make like the flowers situation when you bought flowers at the store and how you were, I'm not even going to tell the whole thing because people are just going to have to watch it. But like when you bought yourself flowers because you're going to do something nice for you and then how you're like in the car and you're kind of like talking about it and stuff. I love that one because it gives perspective. It gives perspective, but there's also so many things like you went and bought flowers for yourself. Like there's so many things about that video that were just helpful in reminding and then just talking about perspective. Talking about how funny it was, things like that. So
You're
I,
so uplifting,
I
Shauna.
love I love the things that you talk about. I think it's great.
I'm so glad. That's so encouraging.
It's awesome. Even my daughter even loves to watch them. She's like, hold on, I hear a voice. I want to watch it. It's so cute.
That makes me so happy. For real. But like,
Like she's my favorite. I love it.
well, and that's like the whole thing, right? Of like you hear people say if it makes a difference to even one person, then it's worth it. And that is like the first thing that came to my mind when you're like, my daughter loves your TikToks. I was like, I did it. I did it. I've arrived.
I have arrived. It
I
is
was like, I've reached a little girl, and now she knows she doesn't have to put up with society's bullshit. I can retire.
yes, I am good. Yeah.
Like, not literally, obviously, but yeah, like that was such a huge, like, I just really appreciate you sharing that. And I think that's so cool because, like, I've had my podcast for over a year. I didn't even know how long, so long. And we were talking about earlier, like, you don't always see the results right away. And especially not for me, because I'm very much baby steps, right? So it's like there's a lot more I could be doing to raise awareness, raise my audience, whatever. And I haven't really been doing that because I'm very much like, let me try to keep it manageable. And so being able to see that and be like, holy crap, dude, you're doing the thing. Like you're
Yeah.
making a little bit of a difference. Um, yeah.
But that's just something like that's because, I talk to you on a regular basis, right? So I'm giving you that feedback. But I'm sure there is tons of people out there that may just not reach out or may just not say, but like that you have actually made a difference, right? Because I feel like there's, what do we call them? Like the watchers, right? Like I feel like there's the people that are the watchers that don't ever really like interact, but if they're watching your stuff, it's because it's speaking to them. If they're listening to you, it's because they're speaking to them. Not everybody is, like good with like communicating what it actually is, but like if they're coming back, that's at least touching them too. So sometimes it's not always like the verbal, even though that's amazing to hear and it's so awesome, but sometimes it's not always the verbal. Sometimes it's the actual action of just returning or, seeing that somebody's watched it or what have you.
That's so good. Yeah. I think like with the brain dragon you were talking about, I think remembering that is so important because we're taught to look for results and we usually look externally for encouragement. And so that's still external encouragement. But just remembering that like you're not always going to get a round of applause, you're not always going to get fireworks, you're not always going to get a gold star, and it doesn't matter. Like that's not the reason you're doing this. You're doing it for yourself to do the thing, but then you're also like having an impact regardless of if people are coming back to you and telling you about that impact or not.
Because you're believing in yourself that you are doing it just by like, you know what I mean? Like like you said, it's heavy on my heart and I want to speak about it. And when you do that, I believe that when something is heavy on our heart and we're speaking about it, it's because we're meant to speak about it because we are helping somebody. And we might not necessarily need to know what that outcome is or how we're actually touching somebody or how we're actually helping them out. We just are. It's like trusting that you are helping somebody because you are sharing all the things, the stories, the storms. You are helping somebody.
And I totally agree with that. And I love that you said that because like I'm a little worried about going long, so cut me off if you need to. But that's part of why I think it's so important for women to start doing the things that light us up because we have a lot to offer and I believe the world needs us, right? So there are things that we have on our hearts that we just bury down and we tell ourselves we're not allowed to have that. We're not allowed to be that person. That's for people like her because she's confident, not me. It's all a lie. And it holds everybody back because if we could step into that power and do the things that we feel like we're led to do, that's what the world needs. Like I am convinced if we would all do the things on our hearts, the world would be not utopia, but like a lot better than it is right now because we're all like, it's so cliche, but it's like we're all these little puzzle pieces. And when everybody's holding theirs back, society's a shit show. But if we all contributed the things that we feel like burdened to contribute and we let ourselves get out there and step into the light and do the fucking thing, we would be creating a lot more wholeness than we're seeing right now.
Yeah. And I 100% agree with you. And I feel like too, that we get the caught upness or whatever, the stuckness.
Yeah.
It's like we are actually preventing the good to come out.
Yes.
Like it's there, but it's like we're preventing it. And if it was that easy, like, if it was that easy, we would be in friggin' utopia right now. Everybody would be doing the things.
Right.
But that's the process of growing and learning is by at least freaking seeing the door, let alone opening it. Like if you see that it's there, like So
Start
you
small,
can
girl.
always close it. If it is not the door for you, you can close it and go find another damn door.
And that too. Yes. I could talk about this
Being okay
forever.
with all of it. Messy,
Yes.
scared, not it, whatever. I'm going to try this over here. I'm going to go rogue. Great. Let's do that.
Yes. And
Do
that too,
something
like
different.
when I realized, God, I don't know how much time I spent. I think I spent at least 4 years at community college, right? Getting two-year degrees. That like clicked in that it was such a waste of time. Like, why did you do that, Mary Beth? Because you were looking for the right thing. Because you were waiting to like figure out. And I was like, bitch, if you would have just like done something instead of trying to figure it out, like you would have already been there. Like,
Maybe, but maybe you had to do those 4 years in order for you to see that opportunity to do the next thing.
right. I mean, that is really when it clicked in, and I was like, this ain't gonna work anymore.
Right.
But I just like I want that to be a message of like we waste so much time worrying about wasting time because we don't want to do the wrong thing. We don't want to make the wrong decision. So we sit here, I'm going to spin my wheels just a little bit more because I don't want to do the wrong thing. And it's like, go do the wrong thing. Go do 3 more wrong things. And you're going to make a lot more progress than you made sitting there overthinking about it, scared to do anything at all.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's so right. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, just do the thing. That's how you learn. You know, if you do the path that's like, oh, look, here's your path. It's shown all the way, until you're 80. Great.
Yeah.
How are you going to, live true to you? Bring yourself out. You have more energy. You have more power. You have more of you to bring out. That's like, this is the ripple effect that I'm sure that you've heard, that gets talked about. Like, you have to start it with you. It starts with you. If you don't do it, you don't do the things. If you don't do what feels right to you, you're not starting that ripple effect. You're the, we here are the ones that are passing the baton. So like you said, don't hold your puzzle piece back, get it on the freaking table and bring what you have out so you can build this story and you can cause this ripple effect for other people to bring their puzzle pieces out and put it in, get out there and start it. Bring it together.
You're so good at like highlighting things. I appreciate that.
I love it. I love all your goodness that you're saying. Okay, so here's the magical question that I love asking all of my guests that are on. What is your superpower, Marybeth?
You warned me about this. And then I got distracted talking to you. I think okay, here's the thing. I am choosing to trust that how much I care is my superpower. For most of my life, I felt like it's like bit me in the ass, and it was always like, oh, you're too sensitive, you gotta be tough. Or like in the corporate world, it's like you care too much, you gotta let stuff roll off your back. And like you care too much just like always rubbed me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true, like in that environment, you absolutely care too much, and that's how you get hurt, and that's how you get taken advantage of, and like this, that, and the other. But I'm like, I am, and this is probably like fresh on my mind because I'm going through a divorce, so it's pretty like, I'm like that girl posting to her Instagram stories right now, being all philosophical. But I am in a place right now where like love and caring, like that's what I'm here for. So I am trusting that eventually I'm going to get to a place where I'm going to realize like I didn't care too much, that is what the world needs, and I'm here to care, and I'm here to love people, and to, which is funny because like I talk a lot of shit too, so I'm not like all love and light. Like I'm also an asshole sometimes. But for the superpower part, I'm like making myself sound like a saint. It's not true. But like, so yeah, and then because society, like, you keep hearing, especially like in the dating realm, right? Or like when people are like, oh, you got divorced, no, this, that, and the other. And it's like you should have like protected yourself more, or you shouldn't have like put yourself out there so much, or you can't just wear your heart on your sleeve. And I am choosing to not believe that at all. Like, I've had my heart broken a bunch of times. First of all, I'm just like a lover girl, and I'm a Pisces, so I fall in love easily. But it's like you can learn to heal and you can learn to recover and get back up. And yeah, you're going to learn some things and you're going to change your approach sometimes. But the fact that like you can't make me shut down my heart. Like I'm always going to care, and I'm probably going to keep falling in love for the rest of my life, right? And like instead of that being my Achilles heel, I'm choosing to believe that that is my superpower. And I don't have evidence of it yet, but that's my answer.
I love that answer.
Thank you.
I love that answer.
Love
And
the
this is
story.
why, because I think that we've been talking about, society and by and large, and I think that that gets conditioned and snuffed out of people, and it needs to be
Totally.
there. It needs to be there. So the fact that you have the awareness that you have that, I am like a co-sister with you on that one, because I refuse to change who I am because of something else that has happened or what I've gone through. So I love that you have that. And I love that you said that I'm trusting too, because you are also like, you recognize it, but you are also reinforcing it by doing that, by saying like, I'm trusting that I'm going to see this. And so you're giving it power by doing that. So you're even making it more powerful, which I freaking love. So I'm so glad that you said that. I think that that's super important. And I love that one. Love that one. That's so good. So thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, of course, man.
Well, thank you for being on the show. I could freaking talk to you forever because I just love you. You're so great.
I know, like, wow, we could just go.
Yeah, we could totally keep going. I love it. So I'm so glad that you were on the show. Thank you for sharing everything, and especially your superpower. I just love it. And I love you and you being you. So keep doing that. And thank you for being here.
You're the best. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, learned something new, or got some gems to take away that will boost your week. I release a new episode each week, so make sure to click that follow button to not miss what is coming next. If you love the show or want to share a story, send me a quick message. I love hearing from listeners. If you know someone who needs this episode in their life, go ahead and share it with them. I'm sure they would love you for it. If you are looking to connect more, check out the show notes for all the social links, my website. I would love to hear how this episode helped you and what you loved about it. If there's a topic you want to hear about, send that too. All right, ladies, now is the time to release your inner power.